Since the last production of Cinderella back in 2010, quite a few bits and pieces have changed, some artistic choices, some technical choices. The technical choices are bits of equipment that have changed. Technology's moved on an awful long way in 7 years. The computer that we program the lights on is an entirely different machine by a different manufacturer with a different operating system, which has created a whole load of problems. It means that we can't entirely use the data from the original production and to recreate it. We're having to manipulate that. Plus lights themselves, and this is for a lighting designer probably the most exciting element. Lights have changed to become, a lot more of them have become LED based rather than a tungsten filament incandescent sourced light bulb, and that's made a massive difference to what's achievable. And so with that technical change come some artistic possibilities. So things that could be things that were you were less capable of doing before. Things like much bluer, colder, brighter, white light is now possible. It wasn't before, because before you were taking a very yellow tungsten source, like a domestic light bulb, that kind of colour, and trying to convert it into blue, and that's something it doesn't have a lot of, so you get very little blue light out. Now with an LED source, it's naturally at the blue end of the spectrum, and so you get these fantastic, vivid, ghostly blues that are really interesting to use at certain moments. Like for instance, when Cinderella enters the ball, we are sending the rest of the cast, into the rest of the company who are dancing around her at that moment, into kind of a ghostly apparition, like almost light that allows Cinderella and the pilot to be the focus. So the process is, first of all comes the piece, in this case a dance piece. So the first part of the puzzle is the score and how that music might influence the lighting. The next is about the design. There's a very significant collaboration between designer and lighting designer, in that those two elements need to go very closely together. I need to be aiding what Les, our designer, is doing, going in the same direction as his style of design for this piece. So that design process is the next element. That's also influenced a lot by conversations with Matthew, with both of us, about how he's seeing the piece. So for instance, in this piece, it's about, it's set in the 1940s and it's set in a bombed out London, and all of those are things that immediately trigger certain thoughts about how to light it from my point of view. And then of course, once we reach rehearsals, because all of those decisions have gone on long in advance, once we reach rehearsals, it's then about what goes on in the rehearsal room with the dancers and how they are using the stage and how they're using the space, and therefore what needs to be lit, not lit, what's the choices that need to be made. So that's vaguely the process. So lighting and music work very closely together. It's in dance, where there's no words, it becomes one of your primary inspirations for mood and emotion and atmosphere. And lighting is trying to convey those things subtly or overtly to an audience, to help manipulate an audience's emotions or feelings, to help support what the production is trying to say at any moment. So in a scary moment, you want to be trying to aid that, not having a bright, jolly, warm lighting state. You want to try and do something that's going to help convey that to the audience. So everyone's working together to try and create the same thing. So music is a massive help in that. For instance, there are moments within Prokofiev's score where there is very big timpani drum, which has been slightly enhanced in the effect by our sound designer. And so for us, those are bombs falling. And so there are, as each of those drum timp moments hit, there is a flash on the cyc, as a cyclorama being the sky cloth at the back of the show. That's, in our version's got a little grounder in front of it as a miniature representation of the city at a distance. And so there are little flashes that go off as though there's a bomb dropping on each of those timpani rolls. Music's a big part of the collaboration. Smoke's a fantastic element for lighting because there are different types of it. So there is haze, which is like a very gentle mist in the air that helps show up beams of light. There's smoke that is sort of a visible, smoky source, and then there's dry ice, or in fact it's not now dry ice, it's a chilled smoke, but it looks like dry ice, like CO2 pouring over the surface. And the first of those, haze, is a fantastic element for lighting because it allows you to get something that is quite difficult on the stage, but it allows you to get depth of field, like in a film, where you could focus on the foreground and keep the background out of focus. Now on the stage, because everyone's sitting very far away and the stages are quite shallow, there is no depth to the image and everything's very much foreshortened in its depth. And a way of providing that is to put the mist in there, which actually fuzzes out the background, essentially, and allows you to focus on certain elements in the image. So haze is a brilliant element. Smoke helps you with very specific effects. The biggest problem with smoke and dry ice, though, is every theatre has different drafts, every theatre has different air conditioning settings. Halfway through the show, the air conditioning will suddenly change because it's decided the audience are getting too hot, and what you normally find is that your low smoke or your smoke suddenly goes and the actors, or the dancers in this case, disappear into a fog, and everyone, it's one of the most difficult elements to control, atmospherics, because you're not in control of the rest of the atmospherics in a theatre. So. And all it takes is someone opening a door and everything's gone. The Angel is lit with a very bright whitish bluish follow spot, which visually helps set him out from the rest of the company. That also is aided, of course, by the costume. The costume is quite reflective and very different sort of material, quite metallic material compared to everybody else. It's very much an otherworldly feel, which is exactly what we're going for, and that helps when the Angel's in the follow spot because it pings out, and he has a sense of other and unnaturalness. I mean, dance in general is less about the individual characters' faces, more about the movement. So in plays you are way more needing as an audience to really get access to my face, to see every flick of the eye, every word that's spoken very clearly, and so that becomes the most important thing. With dance it's about the entire body, because the entire body is being used to communicate. Matthew Bourne is a halfway house between those two worlds, because there's an awful lot of narrative being conveyed through emotion in the face as well as through the body. But that's the essential difference between plays and dance.